Good evening. You're listening to Dissonance on Radio CPR 97.5 FM, your community station here in Washington, D.C. My name is Danger Mike, and I'm joined by a whole bunch of people. This is probably the most guests I've had since Damnation AD came on with their entourage. I have a couple returning guests, Nurple and Billy from The Scare. You guys were last on a couple years ago, right?
About 2 years ago.
Yeah, almost 2 years ago. That's Nurple. And a lot of other people, and I think it's just best if we go around the room and introduce everyone. So, Nurple, you go ahead.
Absolutely. I'm Nurple. I play in The Scare, and we have a huge guest list here tonight of all of our amazing friends from the area we've been working with this past year and more. This is Billy.
Yo.
He brought his beard.
I'm Wes.
I'm Joel. I play guitar in an Aria.
And then next to Joel we have...
I'm Joe Mitra. I record bands.
I'm Steve Mercado. I'm a graphic designer, art director for Shadow Monster Design, and old vocalist for Dissonance.
Hey, I'm Zach. I'm in a DC band called Mostly Dead, and we're playing with The Scare on Sunday.
I'm Mikey, and I play bass in Mostly Dead, too.
All right.
Yeah. Woo! Enthusiasm in here.
So to review, we've got three bands in here, or members of three bands, The Scare and Aria and the Mostly Dead. We also have audio engineers, graphic designers, and so management companies. We've kind of got lots of different stages of the punk rock, vertically integrated production process here, including radio. So we're going to have a lot of different music blocks going on throughout the show, given that everyone wants to get a bit of music in. Nurple started off with a song by the Escape Artist. Why don't you tell us a bit about that first song?
Well, the Escape Artist is comprised of a bunch of friends of ours we've had for years and years, probably a decade now. They were formerly known as Cadence, and they've been playing out for maybe only 2 or 3 years, but this past October they changed their name to the Escape Artist. They had a really cool record release show in Baltimore at Fletcher's, and since then they've just been sort of trucking along. In February they're going to do a split 7-inch with some friends of theirs. They're going to do a little mini weekend tour with a band called Vinny Vegas. And I think they just have a lot of big things coming up in 2009. Hopefully sometime during the summer we can get them out for a couple of weeks. But, yeah.
All right. And, what do you have queued up next for us?
Next, we have a song that The Scare just put up on the 1st of January. A new song that's been sitting on the shelves maybe since about the last time we came on the show in 2007. But it's just gone through almost every bump and turn that a song can go through in the production and release process. It took a long time to record and re-record, and then someone had to get music lessons, and then I won't say who, and then label issues and release issues, and now we just finally want to just get it out. It's called Dream Fatigue, and it's, I don't know, come see us on Sunday and you can sing along.
So this is kind of like your Chinese democracy, right?
Yeah, better.
Oh, really? Let's see. We're back on. That was Ante-Up, for lack of a better word, and before that, a couple songs by The Scare, Dream Fatigue, and The Innocence of Laughter. This is Dissonance on Radio CPR, 97.5 FM. I'm Danger Mike. And we're next going to talk with Billy Nurple and, Joel, you're also in the management company? All three of you run this? All right, so I think this is probably a first of having a management group on the show. I think for a lot of listeners, it may be kind of news that there are punk rock management, companies. I mean, in the DIY world, it's probably like managing a band is one of the last things you think would be farmed out to someone else. So maybe you guys could explain to us what it is you do.
Sure. I mean, if you think of the first thing that comes to mind, punk rock and management, makes me think of that Choking Victim record, No Gods, No Managers. I don't know if that's the name of the record, but that was anyway. Part of what we thought about this was that it's not sort of comparable to the top end management that you see really prevalent, especially now with a lot of bigger bands, a lot of instantly successful overnight pop punk bands or sort of newer sounding emo bands who have managers, publicists, that sort of stuff. Essentially, we've just been hanging out with a lot of our old friends, and they've all done bands over the years. Some done better than others, but to a degree, this is more artist development, where we want to teach our friends and our bands how to how to create sort of sustainable relationships with people, how to cultivate your resources, how to figure it out for themselves so that they can just go out there and do what they're doing. Because we think what they're doing is great. They just, either have bad habits, which, we all have as well. I mean, this is why it's been 2 years since the Scare has done anything new. So it's just a lot of, sharing tips and things of the trade. It's a lot of people come to us and say, well, that's, the opposite of DIY, and sort of take it from an ethical standpoint. But, it's interesting to see, the difference between DIY and practice and DIY as an aesthetic or an ethic. Because even in the suburbs, there are a massive amount of basement shows. And I think a lot of kids in the city forget that, or they hate on that, or they say, well, DIY or die in the city limits. But it's I don't know, it's tough to criticize because the spirit is still there. We used to see Joel's band, who would just sort of consistently only play their house. But it would always be packed, it would always be a great time, and it would always be the same camaraderie, it would always be the same thing. Touring bands would come through, but it wouldn't be sort of on DC's radar.
So I'm not following. Are you saying you help bring audiences out to Hyattsville for basement shows? You're trying to get bands that are playing basement shows to play clubs and play bigger venues.
The latter more so than the former. It's more that we want to show that the bands that are maybe stuck in the suburbs that here are other ways to reach out if you want to. And this on the same token, it's a good it's a good way to say bands from the suburbs do know what they're doing. They do have a sense of credibility and honesty to their music that shouldn't be just sort of crapped on. Can we curse? No, just crapped on. So
try not to.
Crapped on just because of their location, their aesthetic, their choice of music, etc.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds to me like a big part of what you do is there's a lack of a cohesive punk scene in DC. You got different splintered groups talking to each other, and no one's working together. So it's kind of like you guys are forming a consortium of sorts,
yeah,
more than an actual management group.
Yeah, and it's funny because recently I've heard a lot of people say that there's sort of a dying scene in DC.
I wouldn't say it's dying. I would say it's non-existent. It's fractured. There are a lot of bands who have come and gone and some are still around, who get big, and then they get to a certain big in DC terms, which is not that big, but get big, and then don't want to talk to smaller bands anymore.
Right.
Unless they're their buddies. So I think that it's very cliquey, because the people who have been here for a long time realize that DC is a really transient city.
Yeah,
So you guys just forming a new clique?
No, I think it's... I would say that DIY in DC, and it's always still been around. There's always been punk shows, punk scenes, even if they just had to move to the basements and make the basements the precedent. What we suffer mainly from is a lack of sustainable venues. We've seen over the past 3 or 4 years, Warehouse Next Door. I love that place. I love the theater. I loved, even just the warehouse itself. We couldn't do together anymore. The Bobby Fischer building, Joe's Movement Emporium, which, we could actually all still use if we sort of promise to behave ourselves. But, the point is that there's a lack of sustainable DIY venues, and, I love the spirit of going to the basement, but, I don't know. I guess on both ends, be it DC's sort of attitude or kids coming into DC from the suburbs, it just seems that, the camaraderie should be more the effort rather than this, DIY or die.
So do you guys think with the housing market crash, you're going to see maybe a resurgence of DIY spaces? That it's just cheaper to, to open up a place like that?
That economy is good for punk.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Unless I lose my house. And then I can't hold basement shows anymore. I have to hold...